this lesson, we're going to look at the column formatting of our data tables using our builder and specifically looking at classes. What I'm talking about is in our CSS area, we are going to use this new button that prepares the template for us to be able to assign classes to our columns. And when we hit this section, it's basically going to put this placeholder text in there. And whenever we add a class, we need to put it in between these brackets so that the builder can find it. And what that looks like now is I've done a major rehaul to the builder in this styling section. You're familiar with, of course, before using the UI to change the visibility, the order, the column names, and things like that. But this time, we're really going to be focusing in this lesson on the styling. In this particular course, we're going to talk about CSS classes. And when you click this button, you're going to get a window that appears something like this, with all of the options of the pre-built class names that we will be assigning. And when these are in there, we can actually select them and apply that style to a column or columns, or we can say this column has multiple styles. So what we're going to do in the demo in a minute is go over and do something that, actually goes against what our lessons are, but it's for learning purposes. We are going to make something really ugly, to each their own, but I'm going to show you how we're going to focus on using column classes to change some things like our alignment, fonts, coloring, sizes, and really make it obvious of what we're doing to change so that we can see no matter what we do, we can modify the look of our data tables, good, bad, or ugly. But hopefully this lesson just teaches you where to go, how to change things, what to look for, and leaves a lasting impression so that you can go back to and try things out. So the best thing we can do is go to the demo and try to make this thing appear as pretty or ugly as you think it is. We'll see it soon. We are in the demo file 5.3, custom formatting using classes. Let's get started. We have a lot to cover. Let's hit quick start. And the first thing we're going to do here is actually, we're going to go back and play with the context data on this one, just because it's got a little bit more data that I want to present to you on how to stylize. So to do that, we're going to do refresh our memory. We're going to go to video 5.2. And instead of actually taking the action to duplicate the record, we're going to duplicate the code so that we can keep all of the CSS that we've already done, all that work, but we're just replacing the data. So duplicating the code. And then we're going to name our build 5.3, and we are going to say custom columns, or sorry, column format. See, it's column formatting using classes. Okay, and let's just change this context because I know that we're going to go back and change this, and so we are familiar with that. Submit and close this. And as you will just keep quick peek, it's got our existing code that we have in the library, but we have no data. So what we're going to do is run the script to collect our context information again. And we could also copy and paste it from somewhere else, but let's just do contacts and we're going to run the script, load the data. And if you remember, it's just basically grabbing everything from that file and it's going to throw it to our clipboard, and we will just now hit paste and everything's there. And let's generate our columns. All right, and let's go quickly modify this. I'm going to pause for a second and get this right where we need it to be so I don't waste your time, but give me 1 minute to get this set up to the way that we're going to use it. Okay, you can pause this video too and get yourself into the same place. But what I've done is said that I wanted to have these particular fields showing on my report. It is similar to what we've done before, but I've added the email field. Okay, so we have this presentation here. I'll go back and show you that that's exactly what we're seeing. You see the styling stayed. We have company name, address, city, state, zip, and email, all left aligned, all natural data. What we're going to talk about now is this feature in CSS where we can add a class to the column data in here. So when we look at the CSS, there is actually, right now, we've learned how to do the begin custom classes for the table, but we don't and the section here still indicates that we can add it because it's visible, that we could add a section for CSS columns. I'm going to show you something, what that means right now. So if I go back to my columns in my columns builder, what we're talking about is this button right here. When we want to style the particular company name, we can come in here and say, I just want company to have this kind of style. If I click this right now, what you're going to see is a warning that says there's no classes that exist. And that's intentional because we don't have any built in the CSS right now. So one way to do this is from here, the very first time is to say, go add a class. We're going to do that right now, but it's going to be the same thing as if we were adding it from that last screen. So I'll hit add a class, and it's just going to run a little script to say, to tell you, hey, please now go enter them. By default, I've added one for you. So we have to scroll all the way to the bottom. And it's got this section called Begin Custom Classes for Columns. So everything we do for the column classes needs to be in between these two brackets for my script to be able to help you guys out with the builder. So just know that if you're putting something above this line, the code may not find that. So right now we have the word right text align, and that is the only thing in there. Okay, so let's go back to our columns now in the builder. And if we go here, I still don't see any columns assigned, but now if I go into CSS class and I click it, this feature right here, the right alignment tag class is available. So if I click that and say submit and close and come back to our view, what I should see is that the company is now right aligned. That is perfect. That's how simple it is. You have to basically say, I want to create a class, give it a name, and then you put the style within that class, and then you assign it to a column or columns. Okay, so right now this looks a little tight to me. So what I'm going to do is show you guys, if I were to I'm going to go back to my style, and I'm going to add another attribute to the right class. And what I'm going to do for the demo purposes here is I'm adding some padding of one around the entire thing. So when I come back to the preview, look how big everything got. What it's basically saying is, because this class of company is using right, I added padding all the way around. Well, I'm not sure that I actually need all that padding, so I'm going to play with it again. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm basically just going to go and say, I only really needed the padding on this one on the right side. So instead of saying padding, which means all the way around, I'm going to just say add the padding to the right. Let's go see what that does. Okay, it shrunk everything back down because remember, it moved the top and the bottom padding, but I can see that I have some padding right here. For purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to keep moving on now. All right, so let's go add a couple more classes. I'm going to do another obvious one here that is pretty simple on alignment. What I want to show you is you go back down to the bottom of your CSS, and I'm pasting a new class, and they all have to be prefixed with this period to indicate that that's a unique class to this or to this report. And I'm just calling this one center. You can name this anything. You just have to refer back to it. And what we're going to do now is do center alignment. If I come back to the preview, I haven't actually done any of that, but let's go and say, let's make our state be center aligned. So to do that, we're going to go back into our columns. We're going to go into our builder. And we said we wanted it to add to the state. So when I click the class here, now I have both center and right. It wouldn't make sense to click both of those because they are alignment styles, but I am going to choose center here, submit that, go back to our build, and we should see that the state is centered. All right, things are working. Let's also just add another element to that to show you guys what you can do. Even though the meaning of the name says center, try to be smart, I guess, when you actually name these classes, because right now I'm adding beyond center, I'm adding another property to the background. That might not be meaningful or helpful to people who just read the center. So it obviously added that color background, but I want you to know, like, it also added it to the header and overrode our existing formatting. We'll tackle that in a minute, but just note that now we've added some ugly styling that may or may not be what you want. But imagine adding this like as a divider in a financial report or something like that, where you clearly wanted to indicate this is a breakpoint of my data. Okay, so next, let's add another style. Just giving you some more examples using classes. In this one, we're going to do a text transformation, and I'm going to show you by pasting. I like to have a little space in between so I can read. We're going to add a class called uppercase. And for our purposes right now, I want to fix the address here, and I don't like this. So I'm going to make this entire column uppercase. So now we're talking about doing some styling. If I go into, columns and go into my builder, it was the address field that I wanted to add my uppercase to. So now it's because I put it in that section with the right proper formatting, I can select that and apply it. Come back and I expect that address is all uppercase. Perfect. Things are working. It's pretty simple once you figure out how to write CSS, use the internet to create to do this. But now let's just do some other weird things to show you what's going on. I have, let's see, we're going to copy this new CSS and I'm calling it, for purposes of our demo, crazy. We're going to say, let's add font weight bold. We're going to change the font family. So remember, right now the body says Roboto, and we're going to change the font size so we can override what's happening here. So crazy. What field do we want to make crazy? I don't know. Let's go into columns and just pick one. I think we'll pick. Let's pick the name. And we're going to change the name to be crazy. All right, submit, close, see what that looks like. And yeah, it doesn't make any sense to have this, but that technically is what we asked it to do. Take that particular column, assign it a class, and then change the font, override what we used to have on the entire table, and make it bold and make it smaller. Okay. Now there's a couple more things. I'm just going to do a few more styles here to get these in, and we're going to do a font size. So we can see that we've done the font size of 24, and we're also going to add another one called alert right now. So here's another style. And what we're doing here is we're actually saying, hey, when I assign the class of alert, make it red font and make it bold and important. Okay, so right now I don't have those assigned to anything, but let's go ahead and assign go big to company and the alert to zip. What happens then? Back to our builder, we're on company, and we already have the right alignment to the company, but you are allowed to do a multiple select. So adding a class, multiple classes to this is an okay thing to do. And then the other thing we said we wanted to do is on the zip code, we are going to change this one to be the alert. Okay, let's go see what those changes look like. Gross. Yep. Okay, so company still had a right alignment, and you can see that the padding's even bigger because it's large, and the font went all the way up, overrode our challenge up here, and over here on the zip we added the alert font, but something else is going on here. It's got some round borders and things like that on even the data in the columns. Well, it took me a while to figure this out, but I had named my function or my class name alert, and that is actually reserved by Bootstrap already as one of their native classes. So what I ended up having to do is just go, you know what? I can't use that name. So I'm going to just show you that if I take alert and I copy the exact same styling, but I name it something like scary, I don't know why. Now that is not a reserved Bootstrap style. So let's go back and look at this. I have the alert right now. We've got the red font. Let me go back into the columns for that. And we're going to look at the zip code, and I'm going to click into this. But instead of using the word alert, which is reserved, I'm going to use the word scary. And hopefully it looks better like I expected it to. It's still overriding my column header, which is not ideal, but it took off all that padding and rounded formatting that was already reserved. So just be careful when you're choosing your class names that you're doing something that isn't actually used. Check out the documentation. So if you struggle with something like that, it's probably because some part of that class has already been stylized somewhere else in your system. All right, the last one we're going to do is we're going to tackle this email here. And if it's not obvious, I think we're just going to try to show you guys that there's a hyperlink kind of format styling. And I'm just cheating with this so we can show you. I've called something my hyperlink. I've added an underline. I've added a blue color and I made it in bold. All right. So how do we go assign that to the email column? Remember, we go back into the builder. And because we put it in that section, we find the email, click on it, and we find the class that we just added, my hyperlink. Submit and close, submit the changes. And here we go, where we have that. But, you know, I don't love, that it was this way. Let me go quick add a right alignment to that too. Now I could go and add the right alignment in my hyperlink, or I could repurpose the email and say, you know what, I'm also going to use the right alignment that I've already pre-canned and built. So it's very flexible in what you do. But now the format is email all the way down. Okay, we did a lot of styling with using classes, but the problem here that we need to correct, and I need to point out to you because it's frustrating, it frustrated me and I couldn't figure it out for a long time, is how this all got overwritten. I don't want that. I want what we had back in the original, the file right here, where we had this nice kind of pretty formatting up on the top. So in order to do that, I'm going to just basically show you guys what we have to change. This styling, remember, if we go back into CSS, is actually part of my header. Remember, we had said, hey, we had created a special class for that column and we called it my header. So this is the old way that was there with some padding and stuff. But what we need to do, and I'm going to paste this here for you guys to see, is I've modified this class now to have a couple different things happening. Let's just, I'm going to leave this here because this will be over trumping it, but I've added this word important behind it. So if you've seen that, basically the best I can explain is that it's important enough that this overrules anything else. So as long as it comes last in the lineup of CSS, it will override any previous styling, including styling that's in Bootstrap, DataTables, or whatever. So I kind of went through all of this and indicated all of these were more important than something else. So the font, the size, the padding, and I'm just indicating here, we had padding up there, but top, right, bottom, left, and I've changed it a little bit. And then I've left the rest of these. So let's go see what our preview looks like now. Okay, I think that's a lot better. We got rid of the large font. We changed the names, isn't Webdings. This doesn't have an underline. So right now we've kind of went back. It may not be perfect. We have some alignment issues maybe still, but you get the idea of where the styles override and power over each other. Okay, that was a lot to cover. The next lesson that we're going over is we're going to talk about styling, continue on with our styling, but we're going to be visiting it in this area of the JS functions rather than the columns area that we dealt with right here. One thing I forgot to point out as we were going through, when we added those classes to the columns, each row that had a class, or I'm sorry, each column that had a class got assigned a class here. So you can see crazy, uppercase, no class on the city, class of center here. So when you were using the builder and we went through this process, when you chose a class here, the code I wrote for you actually created a new JSON element and set that on the JSON columns so that it knew exactly how to display these things. Okay, that was a long one. We will see you in the next presentation and demo file on talking about custom styling in using a JS function render.